Welcome to the Filmtrepreneur Podcast, episode number 49. No one can stop you from doing exactly what you want to do if you can accept that the cavalry won't come, and if you can be that cavalry, it gives you a chance to be happy. Mark Duplass.
This is the Filmtrepreneur Podcast, where we teach you the top strategies, tactics, and growth hacks that every indie filmmaker needs to know to make money with their films. We are the podcast that puts the business back into show business. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome to another episode of the Filmtrepreneur Podcast. I am your humble and quarantined host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, how to turn your independent film into a profitable business. It's harder today than ever before for independent filmmakers to make money with their films. From predatory film distributors ripping them off to huckster film aggregators who prey upon them, the odds are stacked against the indie filmmaker. The old distribution model of making money with your film is broken, and there needs to be a change. The future of independent filmmaking is the entrepreneurial filmmaker or the filmtrepreneur. In Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, I break down how to actually make money with your film projects and show you how to turn your indie film into a profitable business. With case studies examining successes and failures, this book shows you the step-by-step method to turn your passion into a profitable career. If you're making a feature film, series, or any other kind of video content, the Filmtrepreneur method will set you up for success. The book is available in paperback, ebook, and of course, audiobook. If you want to order it, just head over to www.filmbizbook.com. That's filmbizbook.com. Before we get started, guys, I set up a special link to help people affected by the coronavirus, and you can donate to Feed America. There is a lot of people in need out there, and Feed America is a great organization, and they're helping millions of people on a daily basis, and they also need your help. If you want to donate even $5, $10, it goes a long way. Head over to indiefilmhustle.com/help. Now, today's episode is extremely special, guys, because I was privileged to sit and listen to two of, honestly, my idols, people that filmmakers that really got me off my ass to go make my first film, This Is Meg, and continue to inspire me on my second feature, On the Corner of Ego and Desire. And those guys are the Duplass Brothers. They were the first time that I heard what they did with Puffy Chair, their first feature film, where they just went out and did it and didn't really wait around for permission and just kind of went and did it and didn't really care about how it looked or whatever. They cared more about story and performance. And it really just inspired me. So I had an opportunity to see them give us a lecture at one of their book signings for their new amazing book, Like Brothers. I've read the book, and it tells the entire story of how they made it into Hollywood and how they changed the rules of how they are making films. And it's really inspirational. And also a whole other sections of the book are all about working with brothers, working with siblings, and how to get along and how to collaborate, and that whole world as well. So it's a wonderful read, and I wanted to hear what these guys had to say, and I was able to record most of their talk. I'm gonna give you a little lead into where the recording is gonna pick up. They're talking about their very first short film, which is called This Is John, and they did it back in 2003. And basically, the way it was is they were both sitting in their little apartment in Austin, Texas. And Mark turned to Jay and said, "Today we're making a movie." And Jay was like, "What are you talking about? We don't have a 16 millimeter camera. We don't have crew. We don't have lights. We don't have actors." He goes, "I don't care. We're going to go make a movie. Let's grab mom and dad's video camera, home video camera. I'm going to go to the store and get a tape for $3. And you've got 15 minutes to come up with a story." And he bolted. So since he didn't have a lot of time to figure out a story, he came up with the idea of basically what happened to him earlier in the week, where he was trying to set his outgoing message on his answering machine and literally having a nervous breakdown about it. And that is where we pick up the story, where the boys are talking. So really enjoy the rest of this episode, guys. These guys are super inspirational, and I'm going to have a bunch of cool stuff at the end of the episode. You can see the $3 short film and a ton of more resources and more talks that Mark and Jay do. in the show notes and all that kind of stuff. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But until then, enjoy Mark and Jay Duplass.
And I was trying over and over again. I couldn't get it right. And I pretty much had a nervous breakdown. And when Mark... It's another mild. It was a mild one. Yeah. You might want to cue it up now, because this is what we're going to show. I told Mark the idea, and he said, cool. And he got dressed in my Kelly... I was doing like temp work, and it was called the Kelly people, and you would, I had one button-up shirt and some slacks. That's all I owned, other than just sweatpants at that point. And he put the shirt on, and he looked at the tag, and we saw that on the tag it said John Ashford, and we were like, okay, that's your name. and he walked outside and he said, roll camera, I'm coming in. and this is the movie.
What ended up happening is that we shot one 20-minute take. Our friend David Zellner, who's part of another brother filmmaking team, helped us edit that down to about 7 minutes. And we didn't feel like, it was going to be the greatest film in the world, but we definitely felt like we had broken through and told something that was very specifically, let's watch it again, shall we? Very specific to us, very unique to our sensibility, We weren't trying to be the Coen brothers, we were just making fun of ourselves and the way we do things. And so we're like, well, what do we do with this? We don't know. And then we submitted it to a couple of film festivals on a lark, one of which was Sundance, and we got into Sundance that year. And it was the worst looking movie that had ever played the Sundance Film Festival. And I don't know if you noticed, it's a dead pixel right in the center of the frame.
But it was also the worst sounding movie.
Which is also, it's just good. So we had that going for us. But it really connected with people. There was something in it. And I think we have tried to stay as close to this process as we can, which is basically, the artists, our young filmmakers are always asking us, how do I get started? And besides failing for 12 years, which we try to tell them to avoid, it's kind of that thing where, those little conversations you're having with your loved one or your best friend or someone that's 2 a.m, and you're giggling uncontrollably about something you're confessing to them when you get you get those shivers in the shower remembering something horrible and embarrassing that you did. If you can identify that and share it and communicate it, that tends to be kind of where the stuff is. So we've basically been trying to do that since.
And Jay, do you think you recognized that at the moment then, that you had maybe finally sort of broken through and discovered what your guys' voice could be?
No, I was just depressed and obliterated.
No, but we did have a moment where something interesting has happened.
What I did know at the time, I was just blanketed by decades of failure, what I did know is that we had captured something that we had never captured before. Something happened in front of me, and it was very private and personal to me and Mark. This was nothing that I would have told anybody else in the world. It's so fucking embarrassing, So I knew that had happened, and I knew that it was real, because Mark was only a few years younger than me. He was hot on my tails of having that nervous breakdown. It was easy for him to tap into it. It was the first time we'd ever captured a performance like that. And we just knew also that after one take, we walked away from it. We were like, okay, we got that. Whatever that was, we got that. But it was so different from anything that we had ever conceived or thought we would do. And then when it played at Sundance and you guys, the crowd had this reaction, and also another reaction, which you didn't have because we're alive right now, but half the Sundance crowd was also scared he was going to kill himself. That was seriously the questions we were getting is that was the most hilarious film we've seen at Sundance, but also we were afraid he was going to shoot himself in the head. So it was this weird thing, and it was really not anything smart about us. It was just we saw people laugh at us hard, and we were like, I guess that's what they want from us. Just keep doing that.
But then how did you sort of push that forward and sort of in some ways recapture and expand that?
Very carefully.
Yeah, we really try to stay close to it. Our next film was another short film. This time it had 2 actors in it, really branching out.
It still happened in a kitchen.
It's still shot in a kitchen. And then we went to Sundance with that. And then we thought, okay, it might be time for us to consider making a feature film. But like last feature film we made was terrible, and we were so scared. We had that sort of like PTSD. So we were like, we know how to make a 7-minute scene work. Let's make a movie that's like, let's do the math, 12 7-minute scenes. That'll be an 84-minute movie. We feel like we can pull that off. And then we again went right into Jay's available materials school of thinking, where it was like, I was a musician and I had a van. My wife Katie lived in this very small town in Maine where we could shoot a lot of stuff and people would be friendly to us. And we, were like, ooh, there's this furniture store going out of business. We can get 2 matching recliners for $500. That way we can light one of them on fire. That'll be fucking awesome. That'll be like the big effect of the movie. And so we cobbled together the puffy chair out of that. And what was funny about that is that we really thought, like most people did, like that would be a stepping stone to getting us into Hollywood or into traditional filmmaking where we could make money. And so when we had the puffy chair at Sundance and we sold that, we got agents and we moved to LA and it was this whole rigmarole of like, whoa, now you've done your Sundance movies and you can be a feature filmmaker in the studio system. And that was wildly different than we expected it to be.
And, I mean, one of the things in the book that I appreciate so much is just the practicality of a lot of what you guys are talking about. I mean, a frequent through line in the book is just how to pay your rent. And was it important for you guys to sort of keep that sort of like nuts and bolts practical stuff in the book? And do you think being sort of hyper aware of that stuff is one of the foundational ways that you've had the success that you've had, is you maybe didn't overextend. You kept it to like, oh, I have a van, so let's use a van.
Yeah, I mean, I think that process is endemic to our success, that minimalist sort of, I mean, it really boiled everything down to what we think is important in storytelling, which is, story and acting in filmmaking. It's great if you have a gorgeous film, but like you can have a gorgeous film if the story and acting sucks. No one cares. But if you have a film that has good story and acting and looks like absolute shit, people will still love the movie. Maybe like some, nervians are not going to like it, but like, if they feel it. And we felt that, and we, honestly, that process of, I mean, when we made these movies, $3, the second one was like $50. The puffy chair was $10,000 to produce. And it was truly, what is the cheapest amount of money that we can make this movie for? Don't use movie magic budgeting software. Start with a piece of loose leaf and write the 14 things down that you have to buy so that the movie can happen. And then people who don't want to be part of a rinky-dink movie like that, you want to eliminate them from your set. It like weirdly boiled everything down to like, Mark was talking about the puffy chair and these available materials, and Katie was with Mark and she had to do it. And like I had this friend Rhett who played the brother, and it was the criteria was like, Rhett's really interesting and he'll do anything. That was like the criteria for him being in the movie. He'll do anything we say because he's got nothing going on. He was, at the time, he was like, hey man, you want to come to my apartment and share an orange with me? I have this beautiful orange. That was like how busy he was. And we have continued that now. I mean, like when we make a movie, even if we make a movie in the studio system, Mark and I, we will pull the budget back. I mean, when we made Cyrus for Searchlight, no one had ever made a movie in the studio system for $7 million. I mean, they were like, yeah, we've never gotten it under 10. And we were like, we can get it under 10. we could make that movie now for $300,000. But, you know, we were trying to be minted as studio people at that time. But today, that is our philosophy, is to make the movie as cheaply as humanly possible. So that, you know, for instance, if you make a movie and you go to Sundance, if you make the movie for $200,000 and it has a couple of famous people in it, it's going to make its money back. And if you get really lucky, maybe you sell it for $1 million, and then everybody makes a ton of money.
And that was kind of our journey. Is like, we realized when we made like our little movie Baghead and subsequent smaller movies like The One I Love and The Overnight and, you know, those Creep movies that we make and everything, we make them so cheaply. We actually, people kind of look at us and like, that's so great. You have this artistic integrity and you don't care about money. We're like, we kind of do care about money. It's kind of important because it helps us continue to make more movies. We fund our own movies, and we make more making those movies by owning them and making them ourselves than if we did getting a paycheck from a studio. And it guarantees us that creative control. So it's become kind of seminal for our model. I think we thought, all right, we made Cyrus and Jeff Lives at Home. It's hard to make a studio movie. You got to fight a lot to get what you want done. We thought, if we keep doing this, we're going to be burned out by the time we're 50. So we kind of took a step back down into the Sundance world and the independent world. And that's pretty much what we do now, is try and make these movies on our own dime and make them very cheaply, because you get to kind of stay around. You know, like, if your movie doesn't blow up, it's not a big deal because it didn't cost that much money. And that's really important to staying vital. And we felt like the message we're hearing in the independent film world right now is like, nobody will give me any money to make my movie. I've got this $12 million movie I want to make with no stars that's about incest and rape. And we're like, I think you should make that movie for $1,000 and then sell it for $10,000 and you'll be a wild success. Nobody should give you $12 million to make that movie. It's not the right time. So we kind of felt like being pragmatic and fiscally responsible is something that we wanted to put out in the book, because it's a big part of serving our creative.
Well, it's one of the things that I've always found so interesting about the two of you and the way that you work is that I feel like in your trajectory, you sort of like just snuck in the door, but while the sort of the idea was you'd make a short film, it would play a festival, you'd make a feature, it would play a festival, you would sell it, then someone would then you'd work with a distributor or a studio. Like, you guys were following the path that you were supposed to, and you can tell me if you feel like that was working or not, but it seems like you made a decision to like go down this sort of other path and to work in a different way. And like, once you kind of got in and you started working in the conventional way, what changed? Like, why didn't you just like continue down that path?
I mean, we were incredibly steadfast in curating the way that we made things together. I mean, we make things unusually. We work in a sort of like weird communism. I mean, we are anti-auteur. We have visions about things, but like, because there's two of us, it's not about a dictatorial vision. It's more like, hey, we're here, we're trying to capture this feeling. Let's try and get some lightning on a set. Like, that thing happened.
That doesn't work in the studio world.
It doesn't work in the studio.
They don't like that.
But we did a lot of things like, for instance, when we worked in the studio world, we were like, oh, when you say cut, 50 people rush on set. We can't have that. And also, we can't have 50 people staring at our actors, because we make these intimate movies and what we feel like we have to offer are like genuine performances. So we cleared everybody off a set and we put them in a garage that had monitors, and they didn't like it very much, but when they saw the footage, they were like, okay, we get it. We get what you're doing. So everything sort of worked moving into the studio system. Where the buck stopped was with the studio heads. And we're talking about super smart people who have been a part of making very good movies, who were giving us a $7 million movie based on a $10,000 feature. So we were making a huge leap, which we also recommend people don't do. But the main difference is that we had to have a million conversations about what we were making, and our process is a process of discovery. And so they were making us nail down all these things, and when we couldn't nail them down, they assumed that we were weak and that we didn't have vision.
They want an answer, that you know the answer to everything that's going to make your movie good before you go in. And here's the deal. There are a lot of people that can go in those rooms with baseball caps chewing gum who are very eloquent and can answer those questions very well and confidently. and they're not always the best filmmakers, which is crazy. And we thought, like, well, you know what's worked for our collaboration through the years? Validation, listening, admitting that we maybe not know best. And when we did that with the studio heads, that was the exact impression we got. It's like, they don't really know what they're doing. And it wasn't until something crazy happened. I mean, look, we're still friends with all these people, and we love them, and we've transcended this. But on like day 4 or 5 of filming Cyrus, we're coming from the independent world. We're directing Academy Award winner Marissa Tomei, Academy Award nominee John C. Reilly, and like Jonah Hill right off of Superbad in the middle of movie stardom. And so we're trying to earn their trust. We're doing great, and Fox Searchlight tells us that they want us to reshoot the first scene we shot because it's too brown and too down, and we want to add some throw pillows to the apartment. And we were like, this is going to be tough for us to tell our actors that we need to reshoot the scene. It could blow our trust. And it really came to a head, and I kind of lost my temper, and I started screaming. And I was just like, doing the thing.
You spoke sternly.
I spoke sternly. I was doing the thing on accident that the baseball hat gum chewing directors do. And in that moment, they were like, oh, they have vision. Oh, look at this. They know their thing. And that killed us. We were just like, this is what is required to do this. In hindsight, we were being naive. When you have someone else's money and a lot of money, you need to secure it for them and make them feel good, like it's going to make their money back. That's why when people hear that, like, you know, there was this whole article going around a couple of weeks ago about how we had, like, once turned down a Marvel movie. And they were like, what? That's crazy. But we were like, we had trouble directing a $7 million movie. If we were to have to deal with, like, a $200 million product, you have to be responsible to them. It's almost not about a piece of art at that point. It's about servicing a product, you know? So we were a little naive, thinking like, yeah, they gave us $7 million, they love our movie, let us go discover it on set. I understand why they needed to know that. So now we just tuck ourselves away. We just say, hey, totally get it. Let us just do our thing. We'll make it cheaply, and we'll kind of gouge you when we sell it back to you.
I've always liked the idea of you guys making a Marvel movie, because I always thought it would be like everybody's waiting in the van or something. Like, it wouldn't be an action movie.
We're pretty sure if we made a Marvel movie, it'd be like, there'd be a really long, like 8-minute scene before he leaves his house, and he's really confiding in his wife about how fat he looks in his spandex, and he can't possibly go out there.
And he's got low testosterone, and he has to take the low T medication. And also, one of you motherfuckers is not cleaning the blender in this house, and this is going to come to a head right now.
I would buy a ticket to that.
I just think we ultimately like realize you have to spend 3 years of your life and doing only that. And we like to make like 15 things a year and spread ourselves around. And so we ultimately feel like we wouldn't be happy doing that. They wouldn't be happy with us for sure, because we'd be fussy and talking about discovery. And they'd be like, it's $200 million. There's no discovery, which I would totally understand.
They'd also be like, read the fucking comic book, bro.
Yeah.
It's already written.
And so, yeah. And then to the larger point of that, and this is part back to where Jay and I are right now, is like our collaboration for so many years, because we had failed and we found This Is John, right? And so we were like, well, it's got to stay in the two of us, because we got to protect it, make sure it doesn't get diluted or get bad. But then as we got a little better at our craft and started to realize, like, we don't want to just tell only the stories that we could tell. We realized we wanted to collaborate with a lot more people, and that's how we started producing people's things, which is like, I mean, honestly, how it really started was our friends needed money, and we were the only people who had money, so we would give it to them. But it led to like, oh, this is really great. Like, we can produce a movie like Tangerine, which we are not authorities to tell that kind of story well, but Sean Baker kills it, and he just needed our guidance and our money and some protection. And so that has allowed us to, you know, make a show like Wild Wild Country, which we like can't make that, but we can foster that and govern that. But you can't do that when you're directing Marvel movies. You can't spread yourself around like that. And that spreading around, collaborating with lots of people has allowed us some of that space we're looking for, where we can like develop relationships with other people and have those kinds of intimacies. So it's been very good for us.
And now, Cyrus and Jeffrey Live at Home, I'm very interested to know what the two of you just think of those movies now and how you feel about them.
Love them.
Well, no, just in the sense that on the one hand, they seem now like paths that you sort of didn't take. I don't know if for you they felt like that was some sort of creative cul-de-sac that you thought you were going to get stuck making movies like that, or like in some ways those movies should have been your sort of pinnacle and this springboard to like even bigger movies.
Yeah.
And you guys didn't treat them like that. And so how do you feel about whatever that sort of like phantom limb is now?
Well, I mean, I think, when we were coming up, we wanted to be the Coen brothers, but we let go of that, but we're still holding on to being writer-directors, holding on to each other, and moving into what we wanted to do. And back then, this was the dream for independent filmmakers, is to move through Sundance and come into Fox Searchlight and make Sideways. That's what everybody was trying to do, is make $10 to $20 million great artistic movies with big movie stars. And when we arrived, that model died. I mean, basically, to do the math of it, Cyrus was a $7 million movie that only made $10 million, and a lot of people are very surprised by that because the movie was critically acclaimed, it was very funny, it was very moving emotionally, it was everything that a movie like that is supposed to be. And we were like, why did it only make $10 million? And then when we made Jeff Who Lives at Home, I think Jeff Who Lives at Home only made $4 million. And that right after Jeff Who Lives at Home, we produced Safety Net Guaranteed, which was a $750,000 movie that also made $4 million. And it didn't have wildly famous people in it like Jason Segel. It had me. Yeah. And so we were coming into that time. I mean, we're just very adaptable. That's exactly it. We just are aware. I mean, I think maybe the one thing that has kept us alive all this time is like we are able to look outside of ourselves. When we made shitty movies in our 20s, we were like, oh, another shitty movie. We weren't like, hey, you have to see my movie. It's so good because I made it and you must see it and we have to get it out in the world. We were like, no, it's a shitty movie. We need to move on. And similarly, when we arrived in Hollywood, we were like, man, these movies aren't working anymore. And we were meeting those people and they were like, yeah, these movies aren't really working anymore.
Yeah, and we kind of knew that, like, if we were to try to stay there, the budgets would get tighter, the studios would come down a little harder on you to make sure they could make the money back. It was happened to be the rising of Netflix and a streaming model and realizing we could sell a lot of these movies that we made independently at Sundance. And it was a life flow thing where we're just like, the energy feels so good to be over here. And I think Jay and I are essentially a little bit more comfortable kind of under forecasting and overperforming in that way, Like, we really like showing up to Sundance and knowing that, like, listen, we made this cheap movie, there's no way it's not going to make its money back and do well, and, like, maybe it'll blow up, but, like, it's certainly not going to be a disappointment in that regard, And I think we felt that if we tried to stay in the Cyrus Jeff Who Lives at Home realm or more, it was going to really burn us out because we love those movies and we got to make the movies we wanted to make, but we had to fight so hard to do it. And now we don't have to fight, and it's just will last longer, I think.
And then, I know this maybe sounds a little funny, it seems like with the model you guys are where you are, just for you as people, and this is something you talk about a lot in the book, like you're able to have this really fantastic work-life balance. You seem like you're able to be sort of humans in a way that if you were on that grind of making the movies, or even when you were making Togetherness, it was maybe harder for you. And is that something that also then important for you, just the two of you to discover, is like the way to sort of be people as well as filmmakers?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about it lately. Like, I'm in this weird phase where, like, I'm not really acting in a lot of things, and I'm not actively directing anything because that requires 12 to 14 hours a day on set, and my kids are 10 and 6, and it's fucking board game, homemade pizzas, Austin Powers time in our house, and like I don't want to miss that shit. And so as a writer and a producer, I can be kind of more 9 to 5. And Jay has really had discovered his love of acting recently, and he's able to go explore that and do that. And I think our feeling now is like, well, we have this wonderful company of people who can do a lot for us. We've learned how to delegate authority and how to make things work. And the answer for me is always like, if there is a 20% chance that, or I should say this more clearly, like if I'm thinking about doing something, you know, I look at it and I say, okay, what happens if I punt this? If I can punt this to someone and there's a 20% chance that they'll do it better or worse than me, it's going to be a wash. So I'm going to punt it and let them do it. And then I look at the things that I'm like uniquely qualified to do, like the things that I really feel like I'm special at, which for me is like I'm great at the vomit draft. That first draft, that's like a B-, really fast. I'm good at it. And then I give it to my friends and they tell me what to do with it. And I'm really good at like building the architecture of little projects. Like each movie or TV show is like a little startup. And I can see it. I'm like, oh, it's Elizabeth Moss. It'll be me. There'll be some sci-fi elements. We'll shoot in Ted Danson's house because he's nice. And we'll make it this cheaply. And I know, and I can see the whole thing, you know. So I stay in that zone and everything else I punt.
I've had like a reverse midlife crisis, realizing that I like acting, and I'm coming out, guys. I'm coming out of that acting closet,
which no one knows how to deal with.
It's so weird. All my friends are like, "You're an actor now?"
They're all. Everybody's like, all actors are trying to get where you are so they can have creative control. Like, what are you doing?
I don't want to hold the whole universe in my arms. I just want to be one guy and like jump off a cliff, basically. I don't know. It's definitely an unusual path, and I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of the
You're
guy.
You're clearly very comfortable with it.
Super comfortable with this. I'm kind of the guy in my family. I've always been the guy where words have been used such as histrionic. I'm the person with a lot of feelings, and people are like, "Can you not have all those feelings? You're making us uncomfortable." And now I get paid for that shit.
Or you can have them. Just do it in your room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I've just been enjoying. I don't know. It's weird that I discovered it so late, and I'm kind of excited about, you know, exploring that and trying to do it as much as possible.
And so we've got some questions from the audience that we got before the program. And so I'm going to read. We're going to go through a few of the audience questions here. So the first one, how do you see your roles individually and together in shaping the future of the industry? What sort of impact would you like to leave?
Well, we feel the future of the industry rests squarely on our shoulders as two white men in Los Angeles. The world is, it's really up to us, guys.
Our second book's going to be a rule book, and if you don't follow it, we give you a fucking ticket.
That's right. I mean, I think that, like, Jay and I have a little bit of survivor's guilt of, like, we struggled for a long time when we see a lot of developing artists and people who really have great ideas and passion. We want to help them, and I think so. There's a lot of mentoring going on with us right now, whether that's producing younger people's works or just kind of in a more traditional sense. And this book is even a part of that. It's just like trying to offer what we have to people and our platform to let them tell their stories and lift them up. And I think that, like, you know, if we have something unique to offer at this point, it really is similar to what we saw in Richard Linklater when we were 18 and 14 years old, which is like he was in his late 20s and he was wearing jeans and a pocket t-shirt that was ripped and he had bad self-cut hair and he wasn't that well-spoken, and we looked at him and we're like, well, if this fucking guy can do it, we can do it. And I think that there's something about our story, and which is true. It's just like we just waited at the bus stop for forever. We never left the bus stop. We always stayed, and you will catch the bus if you wait at the bus stop.
And the concept of keeping things simple and cheap, because we are passionate about the democratization of the filmmaking process. Like right now, if you have an iPhone and a laptop, you can make a gorgeous movie that can change the world. That is fully possible, and anyone in this world can do that. And I just had a phone call with a guy who's making his first feature for $700,000. I was like, don't make 10 features for $70,000, you moron. I hope he's not here. But I mean, we are very passionate about helping people avoid the stumbling blocks that we've had and helping people really realize that a budget really can start with a piece of loose leaf paper.
And also, there's a couple questions here having to do with short films. Yeah. In part, do you think there's an ideal length? Do you like the shortest short film possible, or is it a little longer? And then also, do you think they should be a sort of self-contained artistic expression, like its own thing, or do you see them as like, oh, this is the short that I plan to make into a feature?
The first part of that question, someone gave us great advice a long time ago. They said, make shorts, not longs. And I thought that was really smart.
Don't make a schlong.
Yeah, don't make a schlong. So basically, if you're talking about like reverse engineering your creativity into a model that's going to be sustainable, make comedic shorts under 5 minutes, because that's the most highly programmable thing from the film festival standpoint. And then in terms of whether it should be a standalone piece of art or whether like a microcosm of your feature, my very strong response to that is like, get out of your head immediately on that. Think about what is a possible string of 2 to 3 minutes of footage that might represent your special sauce and might be entertaining, and just go from there.
But we think shorts are great. I mean, it's like my first question that I ask people when they ask me like, hey, I made some stuff, I'm trying to make a feature, what should I do? My first question is, have you made anything that you can hold in your hand? Or it's not DVD anymore, it's a link or whatever, but do you have a link that you can send to people and say, this is who I am, I'm proud of this, I feel this is an example of my potential? And most people will not say yes to that question, and I think that is everyone's job, is to make something great that you esteem as great and that you are proud of, and that you say, I'd like to build my filmmaking career on this.
And to clarify that, we do feel like most of the things we receive from people when they try to give us stuff, it is people who have made something that is not great yet, and they're mystified why it's not getting programmed or working, and they're spending all their time trying to market their B- movie instead of spending all their time on weekends making $3 films until you make the A movie. And I guarantee you, when you make that A movie, you will not be stopped. When you make the great movie, you can't be stopped. We've seen that with our own stuff. We've had movies that we have like really liked, and we've like gone out and marketed them and pushed them and done everything, and then not a lot of people see them. And then there are other things that we're like, oh, it'll drop on Netflix and they're not promoting, and then people catch it and it just blows up because they wanted it. So less time marketing, more time making good stuff.
And then just as producers, what are you guys looking for? Like when people are coming to you with, projects, what are the things that you feel like you respond most to?
It's tough because everybody always asks us, how do you do so many things? Like, do you guys ever sleep? And the thing is, we run our company in an odd way where we don't accept submissions, we don't read things from people, we don't read scripts that our agents have sent us to produce. The things that we make, there's a few exceptions, but the things that we make are birthed by us and at our company with people that we have either worked with before or that we trust. And so we almost make 100% of what we develop, and that's where the efficiency comes from. And that was a hard lesson. Like, we moved to Hollywood after we made The Puffy Chair, and our agents were like, we're going to send you all these scripts that you can get up to Vi to direct. And we spent time reading 100 scripts, and then we read them, and then when we're done, we're like, none of these were right for us. And all the time reading the scripts, we could have just gone and made a movie. So we really try to just generate things, and it's hard, but when people come to us and say, will you look at my movie, will you help me? Our hearts are breaking for them, but we're basically saying look, you kind of need to get that first thing on your own. You need to get your own, short film down and get that thing programmed and find it yourself.
Because that's another question we have here. Someone asked, what do you say to a filmmaker who doesn't believe that he or she sort of has it inside of themselves to make the movie that they're trying to get made?
We say maybe you're not a filmmaker.
Yeah, that's not our experience usually. It's probably because people who are coming up to us are probably more confident, but most people we find are probably overconfident. Maybe just for our taste, because we think we suck all the time. It's like every time we make a movie, we're just like, oh God, please don't let it suck. Please, please. It's not like we've arrived anywhere. We're terrified. It's very, very, very hard to make really great movie. And so that's why we beat the shit out of ourselves and, have everyone consult with us, and why we go nuts before we put a movie into the world. I mean, if you don't have the confidence, I would just say reduce everything. Make a tiny movie with your best friend and make them do what you want to see them do.
Yeah, and I think, to clarify that point, it's like Jay and I often get on a soapbox and preach go out there and make your movie and empower, but we want to be clear sometimes that a lot of people they kind of feel like they want to do it and they feel like it might be easy and they're not sure. So we do try to be clear, just be look, this may not be the thing for you. It may not be your form. It may not be that. And I think that is okay.
Writing and directing isn't fun. Yeah. Who thinks writing? If you think writing and directing is fun, you're probably making some shitty ass movies. I mean, I'm not kidding. I mean, that's why I'm doing a lot of acting right now. It is hard. I mean, Mark has the best metaphor I've heard for it. If writing and directing is like being the mother of a difficult child and raising it to fruition, being an actor is the drunk uncle who shows up at Christmas with Oreos and wins the day. I mean, it's not...
And then goes home and doesn't have to take care of anybody.
Goes home and watches Netflix. Yeah, it's a really... I mean, directing in particular is the hardest thing I can imagine. I mean, it's a really, really hard thing to do. And I'm always skeptical when I'm on a set and there's a director who's having a great time. Because I'm just you're not paying attention, dude. Because there's 1,000 things happening right now and you're not watching. I mean, Mark and I mean, Mark's a little better than me, but we're pretty antisocial on set. People are like, hey, can we come to set? And we're like, fuck no. I mean, seriously, when we made Cyrus, Ridley Scott produced it, he wanted to come to set, and we told him no. We couldn't handle it. We were just we have our hands full. The last thing we need is Ridley Scott watching us direct John C. Reilly, Jonah Hill, Marissa Tomei, and Catherine Keener.
And then another question here. Honestly, is it ever too late?
I don't think so at all. I mean, I think for us, and Jay hit this a little bit, but the most exciting thing about the filmmaking world right now is someone who is 13 years old or 85 years old can literally just pick up their iPad and make a movie, and I truly believe that movie can win the Oscar because the technology is there and people are ready to accept anything. The star system has broken down. It's just because Matthew McConaughey is in a movie, people don't come see it anymore, so they're looking for great, unique, original stories, and I really think it can break through, I think it's a little bit of a tough time because there are so many movies out there now. Because of that, it's a little harder to cut through. Jay and I honestly were in a really good place in 2005 to have the Buffy chair because it was a little less competitive then. I think if we submit the Buffy chair to Sundance in 2019, it doesn't get in, and so it's a little tougher, but it is exciting that I think, honestly, anybody can cut through.
Yeah, I don't think people... I feel I don't hear this being talked about enough that, Barry Jenkins was a quote-unquote mumblecore filmmaker alongside me and Mark. We were on festival tours with him. His previous movie to Moonlight was Medicine for Melancholy. It's a really good movie. It's a nice... solid mumblecore movie.
Yeah.
For an African American who has not made a crusher great movie to make basically $1.2 million movie about gay black men in America and to win the Oscar is insane. It's unheard of. It's considering where he came from and the context of all that, and that a $1.2 million movie can look that good. All of that, to me, is super exciting. I mean, I know there's a lot of things to be scared about in terms of what's happening to film, but the process has been democratized in a great way. We have a long way to go, for sure, but it's happening.
And then I'm going to sort of save the last question for myself, and it kind of has to do with the book and just how you guys think of it. Do you see this as some kind of farewell? In some ways, is the book a way for you guys to kind of say goodbye to the Duplass Brothers and to let everybody kind of meet Mark and Jay?
I think there's a little bit of like, come meet the individuation of Mark and Jay. But it's definitely not a goodbye to the two of us. I think that like if I had to kind of be reductive about it, I would just say we're in an open marriage right now, really. We still love each other. We're going to sleep with some other people. It's going to feel real good. But we will all... The sex is always best with the two of us, really. We'll always come running back home to that. And I think that, the reason we wanted to share it in this book is that we felt like for a long time, everybody's asking us, how do you work with your sibling without killing each other? And we've been trying to do that in hour-long interviews like this for years, and we felt like we had to write a 320-page book to even scratch the surface of it. But I think that a lot of people think that it's a lot easier than it is for us, and we wanted to kind of open that up to people and let them know that, like, it's really hard, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I would say it's like partially a goodbye to that lockstep. We're going to do everything together. We're going to write and direct everything together. I mean, that is changing. But, as a company, as us supporting each other in terms of doing the things that we want to do and helping each other do it, that's great. But, I mean, to be honest, for me, it feels like I get my brother back and more of a hello to Jay and Mark. You guys just don't get to be there because we're going on hikes and we're hanging out now like we haven't before. And
you should see Jay in his hiking gear, you guys. Dude, it's so much. It's a whole other panel. We'll get into it.
I wear a vest.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much for being here. And hey, everybody, it's Jay.
Thank you, guys.
I tell you, we all need inspiration, and the Duplass brothers are that, especially for me, about just guys who are just persistent and just, they had 10 years, 12 years of failure before they finally got something to get off the ground, and that persistence of going after it and making it and figuring things out for themselves and not falling into what everybody else wanted them to do, but for them to find their own voice, their own way of doing things. And I respect that tremendously. And they are still an oddity in the Hollywood world and in the Hollywood system. They still walk to the beat of their own drum and are successful doing it and working with Netflix and working with HBO and working with, huge companies and doing what they want to do. So again, and I've preached this so many times on this show. Don't go and make a $700,000 first feature. Go make 10 $70,000 features. And I would even go farther than that. And you can actually go and make 20 features with that kind of money, or 10 or 15 features with that kind of money, and learn along the way where you can actually set yourself up for success. Especially in today's world and what you're trying and what the business is looking like today and what the marketplace is looking for today. So again, and I want to really stress, if you have not read their book, Like Brothers, it is a wonderful read. I put it up there with Rebel Without a Crew, director Robert Rodriguez's mythical book on El Mariachi and the making of El Mariachi. It is definitely up there. And in many ways, I feel that is a little bit more realistic of what these guys did. They took everyday gear and made their movie and made 2 short films, then made a feature, and then went into the Hollywood system, figured it out after 2 movies that the way Hollywood wanted them to be, they just weren't comfortable with. So they pulled back, went back into the indie world, and then started doing things the way they wanted to do it, and told Hollywood, hey, if you're going to work with us, this is how we work. And have complete creative control along the way and make money and help their friends. It's honestly it's a win-win. It's a dream style way of making films, and definitely check out their book. I'm going to put links to the book in the show notes at filmtrepreneur.com/049. And also in the show notes, I'm going to put a link to Mark Duplass's legendary now keynote at the 2015 South by Southwest Film Festival, where he basically says the cavalry is not coming. And it is a must-see for every filmmaker out there. Has to watch this amazing hour-long keynote that Mark Duplass puts on at the festival. It is mind-blowing. It really, really is. So a lot of filmmakers ask me, what should I do first? Go make a $3 short film. Go do it right now. While you're listening to this, start figuring out what you're going to go shoot this weekend and go shoot a $3 short film. And after you feel that you've got something, you got that special sauce, that thing that makes you, and you've got that voice that's on that film. Don't care how it looks. Just put it on there. And like Jay Duplass said, people will forgive a bad looking movie and a bad sounding movie if the story is there. And when you're starting out, that's what you got to do. Get the story done, because we could always add the technical stuff. Look how many beautifully technical movies there are in Hollywood that are garbage because the story's not there, but it looks beautiful. We're looking for stories. That's what Hollywood's looking for. So master that first. Then worry about all the other aspects of filmmaking, which you will learn along the way as well. And in the show notes, I'll throw a couple little extra bonus videos in there of the boys as well. And again, definitely check out their book. Like Brothers is definitely an amazing read. And as always, be a filmtrepreneur. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Filmtrepreneur podcast at filmtrepreneur.com.